It lasted only 15 minutes. That's how long it took for one game in Philadelphia to become something that the baseball world will not forget for a very long time. Not because of a walk-off hit. Not because of a record broken. But because of what happened to Shohei Ohtani inside those 15 minutes, and what the sport chose to do about it afterward. The Phillies and the Dodgers. Citizens Bank Park. A night that started like any other regular season game in late spring. The kind of game where the stadium fills up slowly, where the hot dogs are still being passed down the rows when the first pitch is thrown. The kind of game that doesn't feel like history until it suddenly becomes it. And then Sanchez stepped onto the mound. The first time Ohtani came to the plate, nothing seemed unusual. He walked slowly from the dugout the way he always does, unhurried, composed, like a man who has already decided the outcome before he's even picked up the bat. The crowd in Philadelphia gave him what crowds in Philadelphia always give visiting superstars. Noise. The kind that is not entirely friendly. Sanchez stood at the top of the mound. He looked in. He got his sign. What came next is the part that has since been replayed on every screen in baseball. The pitch came inside. Very inside. Not the kind of inside that happens by accident in a tight game when a pitcher is working the corner. The kind of inside that has intention behind it. The ball caught Ohtani on the left forearm. He stood there for a moment. He didn't drop the bat immediately. He just stood there, the way a person stands when they are trying to understand something that doesn't quite make sense yet. Then he walked to first base. The stadium was loud. But the Dodgers' dugout was very quiet. 15 minutes. That is how long it took for the situation to go from a hit-by-pitch to something that the league office would later describe in the harshest possible language. Because Sanchez didn't stop there. When Ohtani came to the plate a second time, the at-bat lasted only 3 pitches. The third one came inside again. Higher this time. The kind of pitch that makes catchers flinch before it even arrives. Ohtani twisted away. The ball clipped his right shoulder and sent him stumbling backward 2 steps. This time he did not walk calmly to first base. This time the dugout emptied halfway before the umpires stepped in. And this time, crew chief Mark Wegner didn't hesitate for a single second. He pointed at Sanchez. His right arm extended fully. His voice carried across the infield even above the crowd noise. "You're gone." The footage from that moment has been described by people who were sitting in the upper deck as something that felt surreal. Not because ejections are rare. But because of the look on Sanchez's face when it happened. He didn't argue. He didn't throw his glove. He didn't take the long, slow walk toward the umpire that pitchers sometimes take when they want the crowd behind them. He just stood there. Some reporters in the press box said afterward that his expression was difficult to read. Others said it wasn't difficult at all. That it was the expression of a man who knew exactly what he had done and had already decided he was prepared to accept the consequences. The Phillies' first baseman, standing 20 feet away when the second pitch landed, said something toward the mound that the cameras didn't fully capture. But the lip readers on social media had their interpretations within the hour. None of them were kind. What is known is what happened immediately after. A Dodgers coach stepped out of the dugout and walked toward Ohtani. Not quickly. But with the kind of deliberate pace that communicates seriousness without panic. Ohtani held his shoulder with his left hand. He rolled it once. He looked at the dugout. He nodded, the small, almost invisible nod that athletes give when they are trying to communicate that they are fine while everyone around them suspects they are not. He stayed in the game. But the game had already changed. The league office does not move slowly when it decides to move. By the following morning, before the coffee had finished brewing in most of the households watching baseball highlights, the announcements came. Sanchez had been issued an indefinite suspension. Not a 5-game suspension. Not a 10-game suspension. Indefinite, a word that the league uses only when it wants to make a point that extends beyond the calendar. The Phillies' first baseman received a separate suspension. 8 games. For what was described in the official statement as conduct unbecoming and actions that escalated a dangerous situation rather than defusing it. The league's statement was 4 paragraphs long. The language in it was not the careful, measured language that front offices usually use when they are trying to soften the edges of a decision. It was direct. It used words like grave violation and unacceptable and actions incompatible with the standards of this sport. Those words don't appear in league statements very often. When they do, people pay attention. Dave Roberts sat in front of the microphone the night of the game. The Dodgers had won. The scoreboard said so. But the atmosphere in the visiting press conference room did not feel like the atmosphere of a winning team. A reporter asked him about Ohtani's condition. Roberts took a breath. Not a dramatic breath. The kind a person takes when they are choosing their words carefully because they know those words will be quoted and repeated and analyzed. He said Ohtani was being evaluated. He said they would know more in the morning. He said the medical staff was with him. Then a reporter asked what it was like watching those 2 pitches happen in real time from the dugout. Roberts didn't answer immediately. He looked at the table for a moment. Then he looked back up. He said he had been in baseball a long time. He said he had seen a lot of things on a baseball field. He said very few of them had made him feel the way those 15 minutes made him feel. He didn't elaborate beyond that. He didn't need to. The room understood. The Phillies' interim manager, facing a different set of reporters in a different room across the same stadium, handled the questions the way a man handles questions when he knows there are no good answers. He said Sanchez had not been instructed to do what he did. He said the organization did not condone it. He said he understood why the league responded the way it responded. But when a reporter pressed him, when the question came that everyone in the room had been waiting for, which was simply, "Did you know this was coming?" the interim manager paused for a long time. Long enough that the silence itself became part of the story. He said no. But the pause before that no was something that reporters and analysts and fans would spend the next several days discussing at considerable length. Shohei Ohtani did not speak publicly that night. That in itself was notable. Ohtani, through an interpreter, is usually available. He is one of the more accessible superstars in the game when it comes to post-game availability. He answers questions. He is thoughtful. He takes his time. But that night, the Dodgers communicated through a brief statement that Ohtani was receiving treatment and would not be available for comment. The footage that circulated on social media in the hours after the game showed him walking through the tunnel from the dugout to the clubhouse with his right hand pressed against his shoulder. He was moving under his own power. He wasn't being helped. But anyone who watched that footage carefully, and millions of people watched it carefully, could see that he was moving differently than he normally moves. Shohei Ohtani walks onto a baseball field the way very few people in any sport walk into their arena. With a kind of ease that suggests the whole environment belongs to him. That night in the tunnel, that ease was not there. It was a small thing. But in 15 minutes, small things had become the whole story. By the next morning, former players were speaking. Analysts were speaking. The Players Association released a statement that used even stronger language than the league office had. Talk show segments ran long. Highlights that would normally be replaced by newer highlights after 12 hours were still being replayed 36 hours later. Because what happened in those 15 minutes was not just about one pitcher and one batter and one game in Philadelphia in the middle of a long season. It was about what Ohtani represents in this sport right now. He is not simply a very good player. He is not simply a two-way talent or a drawing card or a marketing asset. He is the thing that baseball uses to explain itself to people who don't yet understand baseball. He is the argument the sport makes when someone asks why they should be paying attention. When you hurt him, or try to hurt him, you are doing something to the sport itself. And the sport, it turned out, understood that clearly. The indefinite suspension communicated something that the rulebook alone cannot always communicate. That there are things in this game that exist beyond what is written down. That there are players whose presence carries a weight that demands a certain kind of protection. Not protection from competition. Not protection from failure. But protection from the kind of 15 minutes that unfolded at Citizens Bank Park on that night. Ohtani's shoulder, the medical staff confirmed the following day, was bruised but not structurally damaged. He would be day-to-day. He would likely miss some time. But he would be back. That was the good news. And it was genuinely good news, the kind that made people exhale in a way they hadn't fully realized they'd been holding their breath. But the 15 minutes remained. They didn't disappear with the medical update. They didn't get erased by the suspensions. They sat in the middle of baseball's week like something that needed to be looked at directly, without flinching, and understood for what they were. Not just a violation of rules. A reminder of how fragile greatness can be. And a reminder of how seriously this sport takes the responsibility of protecting it. Even when the protection comes 15 minutes too late.